Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Subject of this morning's panel is going to be on reauthorization of the National Quantum Initiative Act, focusing on enabling innovation, enhancing partnership, and ensuring global leadership. Before I introduce the panelists, my name is Jim Cook. I am currently working with the Potomac Quantum Innovation Center, and I'm the lead for the stand-up of the Policy and Ethics Center. Just let me set a little bit of context before I introduce the panelists. So NQIA has helped to set some priorities and establish the initial government infrastructure to ensure long-term success on quantum, specifically by focusing on workforce issues, government collaboration and demand, and international collaborations. I think that NQIA has helped to put us on the right path to success. But with the reauthorization coming up in 2023 here, just within the next couple of months, we believe that there's a need to not only renew NQIA, but expand and increase its focus, especially in the three particular areas that I mentioned: workforce, government collaboration and demand, and international cooperation. So the focus of this panel discussion today is going to be to talk a little bit about what some of those priorities ought to be and some of the ideas that ought to be incorporated. Joining us today is we have three experts that are working at the intersection of legislation, policy, research and development, and application of quantum science, and we're looking to get their views on how Congress can expand this important act and continue to put us on a path to success. So joining us today are a good, diverse set of perspectives. First person that I'd like to introduce to my immediate left is Allison Schwartz. Let me get your bio, Allison. So I can read this since it's not on the site. Allison is a experienced global government affairs and public affairs leader with a history of working in technology, quantum computing, retail, financial services, transportation, healthcare, homeland security, cybersecurity, and services industry. The list that you haven't worked in is probably shorter. So, her view on public policy advocacy incorporates direct advocacy, communications, digital media, strategic philanthropy, and public affairs. In addition to her role at D-Wave, she also currently serves as industry co-chair for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, or ATARC's Quantum Working Group, and she's the chair for the Government Relations Committee with the Alliance for Digital Innovation. She has a BA in political science from Tulane University. Allison, thanks for joining us today. In the center here is Jacob Smith. Jacob's professional staff with the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. A native of Mississippi, Jacob joined the Science, Space, and Technology Committee in February 2023 as a professional staff member. Currently handles a variety of emerging tech issues for the committee, including quantum, CHIPS Act policies, and parts of artificial intelligence. He's worked on Capitol Hill since 2016, serving in the offices of Senators Roger Wicker and John Cornyn. Jacob holds a BA in political science from the University of Mississippi and a master's degree in peace studies and conflict analysis and resolution from George Mason University. He's also an avid golfer and loses much of his polite Southern charm during college football season. I lose my charm on the golf course, so any sense of being polite. Okay, and then last but not least is Paul Stimers. Paul's partner with Holland and Knight, LLP, and founder of the executive director of the Quantum Industry Coalition. Paul's he's a Washington, D.C. attorney and a member of Holland and Knight's Public Policy and Regulation Group. In addition to quantum policy, Paul focuses his policy advocacy efforts on matters related to other emerging and disruptive technologies, such as commercial spaceflight and artificial intelligence. He advises a wide range of companies and industry associations in pursuing legislation and representing their interests before Congress and federal agencies. He holds a BA from the University of Washington, a JD from Harvard Law School, and an MPA from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Thank you all again for joining us today. So we don't have a lot of time, so let's jump right into it. So NQIA was originally signed and passed into law in 2018. As we look upon the first 5 years and the upcoming reauthorization, what do you think, in each of your perspectives, are some of the key successes, and what are some of the additional steps that you think ought to be taken in the three critical areas in particular to help build on successes? Allison, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Thanks so much for having us, and I'm happy everybody's here. I think some of the major successes is actually getting it off the ground. Sometimes people take that for granted, and as we're looking at a looming government shutdown, it actually showcases that sometimes Congress can actually move things forward and government can start to progress. We've set up quantum centers on a variety of different technologies, from computing, sensing. There's work being done on education, K through 12. There's international agreements that have happened between the United States and other regions. And so there's a lot of great work that's happened over the past 5 years, but the really interesting part is, as was mentioned, this is the critical time for reauthorization of that. So we can look at those successes and then build upon it. What advancements have happened in the industry with quantum computing moving into the cloud, the huge increases and advancements in the software stacks and things like that. And so that's where Jacob and his team are helping kind of set up our U.S. programs through this reauthorization for success over the next 5 years.
Great.
I mean, Allison covered a lot of the successes that we've had. I'd say from a Capitol Hill perspective, we've been really excited about the amount of investment that what has been a modest amount of federal money that's been invested into quantum has been able to spur from private industry in the U.S. And that has helped us gain a lead and then maintain a lead over a lot of our competitors. But we've really started to recognize that as quantum becomes a more mature area of science, technology, and the industry itself grows, we need more of a government role, more government investment, and especially have more targeted investments in the areas where we'll see application. And I think that the original Quantum Act did a good job of getting the ball rolling. We got a lot of agencies plugged in, and the reauthorization needs to look at who else needs to be in the fold, who else needs to have a seat at the table, and what areas should we start to focus on that are going to have the biggest impact in the future.
Well, thank you. I certainly agree with all of that, and I should note that D-Wave is a member of my coalition, so Allison's really double dipping here. But, I think increased investment is important. Moving things from the lab to the marketplace is important. Leveraging private sector investment is important, and one of the best ways that the federal government can do that is by sending the demand signal, by saying, yes, we will, across the entire government, buy quantum, either by quantum computers or by quantum computing time, in furtherance of our agency mission. And when you put it that way, that creates the signal that unlocks a lot more private investment. It also means you don't have to choose winners and losers at the federal level. Each agency can find the kind of thing that it wants and buy that. And so you're diversifying your effort and paying for performance.
So Jacob, let's come back to you. You've been getting a ton of input. Ask and you shall receive. and have been circulating drafts of the reauthorized version. As you've received that input, what are some of the key things that are resonating with you and that you're beginning to work into that draft? Where are you taking this?
715 unique inputs to the first draft, just so you know.
Mine was only one.
We did count. Yeah, we got a lot of very constructive feedback. A lot of support for what we were trying to do, not a lot of friction on the direction we were trying to go. But what we really were looking for when we shared for industry, what we've been working on since March really, is how do we define things? How do we capture what industry is doing in what has to be very broad legislative language, and how do we do so in a way that's not exclusionary? And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback there. We've been working through it over the last couple months. We're really excited about some of the proposals that came in on how to fine-tune a lot of our workforce efforts. Who should be at the table? Who should be partners as we try to stand up new institutions at federal agencies to create a pipeline of not just PhDs in physics, but electricians and software engineers into the quantum ecosystem. They don't all have to be experts in quantum, but they should at least know what it is beyond the Ant-Man movie. We need people to understand that there is a a successful career ahead of you if you choose to at least explore going into a quantum field as an engineer or as a software engineer or as an electrician. And we got a lot of positive feedback there. And obviously we had some great recommendations on how much we should fund these programs. We continue to evaluate those. We won't show our hand yet. But we're going to circulate a round 2 very soon. We are negotiating back and forth. We obviously have some fiscal constraints. We're how many hours away from a potential government shutdown. That is going to color what we do in the quantum initiative, the NQIA 2. But we're gonna do what we can to make sure that we're carrying the program forward.
Can I just ask you to do a bit of a brief riff on international collaboration, because I saw a lot more in the draft on that, and that's been a big topic of discussion at this conference.
For sure. And Paul actually brought a copy of my bill, so if I lie, he's going to keep me honest. So we've tried to build international collaboration in a couple sections of the reauthorization. We both want to have a targeted international collaborative strategy at a very high level. The executive has almost unilateral authority to carry out foreign policy, period. So we have to do this at sort of an OSTP, White House level, but we can direct them to start talking to our friends and allies about what do you specialize in? What can you bring to the table? How can we collaborate not just on research, which NSF does a lot of international research, but also bring the companies together? And how do we break down barriers to that collaboration and to mutual investment? And really the crux of it is, it's no secret that the United States, and Congress especially, has been very interested in making sure that we are friend-shoring critical sectors of science, technology, supply chains, and things like that. How do we bring in our allies in Europe and in the Pacific to make sure that we are counterweighting the massive investments that China, Russia, and others are making? So we have a component that's in there on building an international strategy to help build those relationships, but we also want to look at how do we fund mutual research agreements that have already been signed with other quantum countries, because we've gotten a lot of feedback on, we sign these agreements, but we can't carry them out, and that's great for the universities and for our companies to do, but we want to make sure that the folks who are looking at engaging with the United States know the government is behind this.
So Paul and Allison, let me go ahead and ask you then. You've seen the draft, you've commented on the draft. What in particular stands out as to you as something that may be particularly beneficial?
Well, first, I'd say, speaking on behalf of an organization that is designed to promote U.S. quantum leadership, the international collaboration aspect of what you're doing is critically important, and we strongly and wholeheartedly support that. I see Celia here with QEDC. She's been tremendous, and her organization has been tremendously helpful in building those international relationships and having U.S. quantum leadership be a very inclusive effort among all of our friends and allies. So thank you for doing that. I think adding, we've seen in the draft adding NASA to the National Quantum Initiative. Dr. Nasser Barghouti is here from NASA. They've done a tremendous amount of work on quantum. There's a lot more that they are beginning to do, and I think that's been really exciting. And then, as we say, bringing it to the marketplace is critical, and the elements of your draft that do that are something we're very excited about.
Allison?
I want to foot stomp on the international engagements and the cooperation agreements, but also understand that there's a hole in those as well. As Jacob said, a lot of them are academic engagements, and that is critically important. But no one country actually owns the supply chain for any quantum technology out there, whether it's computing, sensing. You do not have it in one domestic entity. So you have to have, friends and allies that have different parts of it. And there's cryogenics in Europe, and there's, some R&D efforts in Canada, and there's some really critical components that are coming from other areas in just computing alone, let alone adding in sensing and communication. So these international agreements, and yes, it does sit at the administration, but Congress does play a role in helping shape it to protect the supply chain of these technologies, but also the end users. And so some of our allies, I see our friends in Canada are here, they have a national quantum strategy that has 3 pillars that includes talent, research, and commercialization. Australia, I've seen them here, they're actually building applications applications to optimize their transportation network. In Germany, they're actually building applications to utilize it. In Japan, they've built applications for sustainability efforts and tsunami evacuation routes. And so in the NQI and in the red line, there is some look at how do we utilize the technology for near-term use cases, which wasn't in the original context. So I want to thank Jacob and his team for including that, because we can work together with our allies and we can develop things in the US. We're using Canadian technology, using some cryogenics that came from Finland and things like that in order to bring quantum up and start to utilize it. And I know we're all waiting for that time where we can have this great kind of killer app out there, but there's so much that can be done today, and waiting for the scientific advancement for that one hope in 10 years is the wrong step. And so I love the fact that Jacob and his team have actually started to prioritize using the technology today, because that provides an advancement and a feedback loop, so we actually advance our technology faster.
So a lot of good thoughts on what should be in there. Is there anything that shouldn't be in there? Jacob, why don't we start with you?
Well, I wrote it. I think it's perfect. I think that we have had to... There's some things in there that I think I won't say the quantum industry as a whole, but that I think some components would like to see the government do more of. One area that I think that we've tried to build into the reauthorization is, how do we move from fundamental R&D at federal research agencies to applications? How do we go from doing sciencey science, as I like to say as someone who doesn't have a PhD, to actually like building a thing and doing a thing with what we've invested all of these billions of dollars in? We do these as part of 5-year windows. Well, in the next 5 years, at the end of that 5-year, we might have some real applications that are making a huge difference, not just for DOD or for NASA, but for the everyday American. How do we incentivize that, but still recognize that we still have some fundamental work we got to do? That's a difficult policy question. We've largely chosen to focus both. Well, we kind of split the baby a little bit. We want, as we do this fundamental research, to start considering commercialization and applications, but we're not able to put as many resources as I think we would like into pure commercialization efforts. And I think some people would like for us to focus there. We have to function within the system we've got.
I can add on to that. One aspect that I am, and you've heard kind of, I worked in a variety of different industries, and one area that I'm always nervous about is when the government builds something that commercial entities already have. And so, making sure that you had said what shouldn't be in there, I don't think a government product that is competitive to what industry already has would be beneficial in any way, shape, or form. I think partnering with industry for government research to better on and tack on to things. So having, if you have a certain type of technology that industry is out there and working on, the government should work with them. They should bring them into the national lab projects. They should bring them into the academic side. If there's an end use case where a mission could use it, to work with them to be able to utilize the technology, but making sure you don't have, a government competitor is important. And so far it's not in the bill, but that's always something I look out for.
Okay. Paul, anything to add?
One of the things that I think is going to be important to see in the bill, and we spent a tremendous amount of time on, is understanding what a quantum system looks like. The definition of a quantum computer or things like that. And having worked with the National Nanotechnology Initiative, it took 10 years to figure out what nanoscale meant. And we don't want to spend that kind of time understanding what a quantum computer is for the purpose of legislation. And so just getting the definitions right, and in a way that is non-exclusive and inclusive, and yet doesn't allow for the quantum crystals people that you see on the internet to get sucked in. That's going to be an interesting opportunity and challenge, and one I can see from your face you've spent a lot of time working on already. So thank you for that.
And he's still smiling.
Definitions are hard.
Are there any additional thoughts, concerns, considerations that each of you feel should be considered, or Jacob should walk away with for his work? Allison, why don't we start with you? Any final overarching concerns or
I
considerations?
always have final words. My husband always says that. So I would say that, and we've talked about this, Jacob, you know, you come here today, you go to the exhibit hall, you talk to the different companies. There's such a wide variety of different technologies that are out there. In computing alone, you have quantum annealing and quantum gate models and quantum hybrid. In sensing, you have a diversity of different technology out there. Each of these have their own capabilities. Each of these have their own benefits. And to be explicitly inclusive of all of those mandates that we actually get the benefit of all of these, because we don't know 10 years from now what that winning technology might be, and it might be 4 or 5 of them, and we just don't know. So being able to be explicitly inclusive, and that is actually a position that other governments have taken already. And so the US so far has not taken that, but this is the time where we can step into that space.
Paul?
Yeah, I'd say be inclusive, but make several big bets. And that's a tough thing to balance, but it is doable. And then I'm also very much looking forward to seeing the introduced bill, having the markup, getting it through the House of Representatives, and then we'll see what happens with the Senate. I didn't ask. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We're just looking forward to it, and delighted that Chairman Lucas is back and on the mend, and looking forward to a productive fall.
Jacob, any final thoughts, and any thoughts on timeline?
Soon-ish, which I've been telling Paul since March. Well, I'll make a pitch to y'all. This is an inherently hard policy area, and it's especially an inherently hard policy area for members who have other competing legislative priorities. But quantum is important. It is up there with AI, with semiconductors for the potential impact it can have on the future, and especially for national security and economic competitiveness, which members know at a functional level. But when we drop this thing, when we mark it up, it's got to get votes, and we are going to need industry support to push it. We need the folks on the ground to talk about the cool work you're doing, the benefits it can have, and the future of the industry. Because we have to educate people like me who are not physicists on what quantum is at a level sufficient for them to understand what they're voting on, but in a way that they can also digest. And that is an incredibly difficult task. We did it with the first bill, but it's no guarantee that we get the same number of votes for the reauthorization. I think we're in a good place now, but as we carry this forward, we're going to be coming to industry and to stakeholders to say, help us push this with members, help us get the votes. Talk about it, put out press releases, retweet when we introduce the bill. These are the basics, but they go a long way on Capitol Hill.
Great. I want to thank each of you for joining us today and your remarks and your candor. I think we're just about at lunchtime, and so I want to make sure that everybody stays on track. We'll go ahead and wrap up. Enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of the conference. Thank you.